Church of Scientology so afraid of?
This is
SPTV.
Welcome back, everyone, for more SPTV. I'm joined today by, you all know him, you all love him, Serge Del Mar. Should I put up our little banners, our little names?
Yeah. Hi, guys.
Show display names. Bada bing. Guys, we're here to talk about a little bit more stuff relating, well, to relating to the previous conversations that we've had so far, right? Primarily we're talking about Scientology's abusive policies and practices towards children. This was brought up a couple weeks ago with a lawsuit that was unsealed, suing Scientology recruiter Gavin Potter, suing David Miscavige, suing a few Scientology organizations for specifically targeting young girls, underage girls, for recruitment into Scientology and marrying them off to older Sea Org members. And this has served as a foundation for a greater conversation regarding other ways Scientology policies and practices abuse children. And then that leads into a subject of who knows about it? Like, who is it in the organization that's responsible for this stuff? How widespread is such knowledge? How is such knowledge used? And what we're looking at today is how Scientology profits on this knowledge. Scientology profits on the knowledge of the abuse of children and the abuse of children. We have an article from 2011 that we're going to pull up to show you some of the previous reporting that's even been done on this subject. But do you have anything, Serge, that you want to say right off the bat as far as how Scientology actually profits off of instances where children are abused?
Well, yeah, Aaron. I mean, I think we're talking about going back to, again, is through the use of their so-called technology. Like, all of Scientology is a technology, and the abuse happens through the three pillars of Scientology, which are courses, auditing, and ethics. Those are the only three things Scientology has to offer to the world. And everyone a child is brought into an audit, they're being abused. They're being held against their will. They're being forced to look at traumatic things that are completely outside of their developmental stage of their brain. As much as Scientology likes to tell us that we're not animals and we're not our brain, that's how they used to put it. They used to be like, your brain, you're not an animal. Like, that's what the psychiatry is trying to tell you. You're a spirit. You're not a brain. Like, that's stupid for you to think that. So it's very important that we make this case because, again, the religious experiences that attorney Monique Yingling says L. Ron Hubbard was all about is these abusive practices of auditing, and then courses where you have the grooming. That's where you read all of these policies that tell you how the role plays are going to go, and you drill it with a doll, just like any old groomer does it. I mean, I did a little bit of research on this, Aaron, and, turns out a lot of, pedophiles use dolls to groom. I mean, who would know that using a doll with a child could create these fake environments where, you guys, they always told us we were doing a drill. But, are you doing a drill if someone is telling you to your face that they want to rape you? No. So courses are the next pillar. And last but not least is ethics. And, with ethics, they go wild. They literally go back wild. They can lock you up. They can interrogate you ad nauseum. They can bring two people to the room to scream at you while you're in the cans. And again, it's like, how is any of this torture a religious experience? Like, we still are waiting for someone to come and tell us. I mean, like you say, Aaron, we grew up in a cult. Maybe we don't know what the hell we're talking about, So those would be the three things that I would say.
I just said in the video that I, just finished like an hour ago or so. I said, as was kickstarted by this lawsuit, the conversation that's been kickstarted by this lawsuit, we've started building this list of Sea Org recruiters that people have had over the years who use these coercive tactics on children. And it occurred to me today, out of all the former members who are speaking out, I really struggle to think of someone who's speaking out that was a Sea Org ethics officer, a Sea Org recruiter, or a Sea Org registrar. And I feel like we need to focus on finding people who actually did these jobs, who are willing, because we can talk about all the shit we know just from observing it. But I want to start hearing from people who actually did the jobs. Sea Org recruiter, Sea Org ethics officer, Sea Org registrar. And I said, I wonder if you agree with this. I said, those are the areas where Scientology destroys the most lives. I said, it's usually not in the course room. I said, it can be in the auditing room. But boy, I'll tell you, the techniques used to recruit, to reg, and then particularly in the ethics office. The ethics office is where lives are destroyed. But
Well, I would almost just, I
ahead.
would push back a little bit on two things, Aaron, because I think the auditing and the CSing is the crux of what Scientology is. You don't have Scientology if you don't have sessions. If sessions don't exist, then nothing in those hotels is valid, because the whole thing about Scientology is the sessions. And in terms of the strength of the manipulation, right? It's like, and it might be from where I experienced it, right? Being in the technical lines, like, because I had a front row seat to all the case supervisor offices. I had a front row seat to everything that was going on in the HCCs. I had a front row seat about the course rooms and the ethics officers, because my job was to be basically the point factor into all these, how all of these things happen. And the audits and the CSing, Aaron, just, people have given that the benefit of the doubt. Like, that was the good part. But you know what? It's like, in terms of for children being locked up against their will, like you said, like the worst thing you ever wanted to be is in a session. Like, you could almost take all the other abuse.
Yeah.
But then also, at what point do we have to start finding a scale? Because, it's all unacceptable and okay. So like, there is no scale to put how something is worse than the other. Like, everything can be bad. And that's the problem that we're trying to
but
highlight.
what I mean is, like, as a course supervisor, you're going to have a hard time finding a story of someone who was a course supervisor who destroyed someone's life, or who was a receptionist or the DIRCOM or whatever.
I was a course supervisor, Aaron, and I would say that I was in the front lines of destroying lives. I was, grabbing cadets to have them co-audited. That's destroying a child's life and innocence.
No, I know, but you're talking about a specific part of it. I'm not trying to make overarching statements that no abuse occurred in an auditing room. Of course, that's what we've been talking about the entire time. But when someone's being subjected to sec checking, who's the liaison there? It's the liaison with the ethics officer. So I'm talking, like, sec checking is a justice procedure. I'm not trying, my statement is not meant to be exclusionary. My statement is meant to be like, it didn't even dawn on me until this morning, because we're talking about all these. I mean, even the lawsuit itself is about recruitment tactics targeting children. And it occurred to me, how come over the last 15, 20 years, I cannot recall someone who spoke out and said, I was a Sea Org recruiter. Here's how we were trained to target kids. Here's how we did it. I was like, really? But there's so many of them. How come we haven't heard from any of those people? And there's one person, Louis Repetto, who's he watches these videos. He's in the comment section. He's the only person I can think of who's a former Sea Org ethics officer and is someone who speaks out. But like, I've never, I'm trying to remember. I don't think I've interviewed Louis yet. And all those, like, recruiters, ethics officers, and registrars, it just seems like we have a lack of representation of people speaking out. It wasn't an attempt to minimize what happens in an auditing session. Do you know what I'm saying? But like,
but we don't have enough CSs or auditors either speaking out. So it's really the same. They're all part of the same thing, really.
That's true. That's true. But even when someone also is either getting sec checking or ordered to sec checking, very often you have the threat from the ethics officer of, you have to do what we tell you or else you're going to be expelled. There's that. So that cloud that's hanging over your head there, even like, I have to, if I leave this auditing session, I'm going to be declared a suppressive person. That's a cloud hanging over from ethics. That's ethics that's going to instill that pain. Aside from the technical pain of being forced to sit there and, listen to someone have a child be, be subjected to interrogation regarding,
and that's why it's important to advocate against it all, because you know what, at the end of the day, L. Ron Hubbard has a contract that is not in anyone's best interest. And it doesn't matter where you end up in this whole ladder of crazy abuse. And it's just a cycle of abuse. And it is all a hamster wheel of abuse. Like, everything happens. Like, if this doesn't happen, then that happens. If that doesn't happen, then this is going here. So none of that is ever beneficial to the end user. And I think that's really kind of like the bottom line argument to make. Like nothing is just beneficial to the end user. So they cannot be audited, CS, regged, recruited, because it's not to anyone's benefit.
Right. So when we're talking about monetizing these things, that's where it then comes up. Like some guy in an auditing session or in an ethics interview admits to abusing a child. Help the viewers understand how Scientology monetizes that.
Well, because the audits are, a fake deposition, first of all, because you're in a position where you're going to be asked highly incriminating questions. And as we said in our previous live, you're never going to get in trouble as an auditor for asking inappropriate questions. In fact, you're going to get in trouble for not asking, because then you're going to be told namby-pamby, thidy-weedy. So in what position are people that completed a 2-week course in a hotel in a position to be asking legally incriminating questions? Because going back to the confession, if you're asking them from a canned list, did you do this? Did you commit a felony? Did you commit a rape? These are highly looking into a specific area, and that's being monetized when the information is extracted, is data mined out of that end user. Oh yeah, I did this. Okay, great. Now let's put you on a tailor-made sec check, which in Scientology, I mean, these people double down and then triple down, because the tailor-made sec check is now going to be questions that are specifically related to that exact felony that person just admitted to. But now let's do 20 questions on that from a case supervisor in Scientology. That again, what are these case supervisors doing? Completing a 2-week course and then pouring through these notes and then coming up with the questions. Like L. Ron Hubbard gives them that power, right? Make up whatever you want, have at it, right? Like there is no guardrails and there is no attorney present when you're being asked these self-incriminating questions in this hotel room. So that's what is going on. And the fact that then they quadruple down to be like, once they found that they monetize it, it's just inconceivable that any of this is happening.
So let's share this article. By the way, if you're one of the 600 people watching live right now, do us a favor, hit that like button. It's free, it's easy, it's fast, and it actually helps with notifications, believe it or not. Okay, this is an article from the Tampa Bay Times. I can't get the Tampa Bay Times logo there. Does it matter? Bada boom, Tampa Bay Times. Guys, this article is from 2011. They were talking about this stuff. Serge, I'm going to jump to the part in this article where it talks about the registrars getting the dirt on people and using it in fundraising. So let's find it here. Okay, but one of the team's tactics didn't come from a best practices list. The Los Angeles fundraisers routinely asked ethics officers, directors of processing, and church registrars to divulge parishioners' personal secrets. Plahuta said, this is a quote from Cindy Plahuta, a good friend of mine, a good friend of the Headleys. Cindy's someone I hope to be talking to on the channel very soon. We would find out what trouble they had been in, what their buttons are, how much money they had. We had the skinny on everybody. In Scientology, directors of processing made sure parishioners are progressing through their auditing sessions. They often hear church members' most intimate thoughts. You spiel? Is that a typo?
You spiel your guts.
You spiel your guts.
That was a thing to say. Go spiel your guts at the ethics officer, spiel your guts at the DFP, which means like hold no boundaries and tell them everything that's going on.
Are you sure that wasn't someone with a horrible accent saying spill your guts? Sorry. No one thinks my jokes are funnier than me. Okay. You spiel your guts out at a DFP. That's a director of processing interview is what DFP means. You tell him everything that's upsetting with you, everything you want to handle. It was not confidential by any means. I could tell you who the child molesters are. The guy naked under the raincoat exposing himself, the people who've had affairs. Parishioners had no idea their secrets were out, and fundraisers were careful not to let on. But they made clear in their presentations that superpower would address the issues they knew were troubling their targets. The reason it's mentioning superpower here, guys, is because one of the things Cindy was doing in Scientology was getting people to pay for a series of auditing actions called superpower. Okay, so let's see. They are there because they know something is wrong with them. The fundraisers talked generally about that specific aberration and how ruinous It was for society. So this is literally monetizing abuse is not just a cute title for a video. Scientology, when they find out that someone is abusing, well, anyone, but including children, or if they find out that one of the things ruining your life is you were abused as a child, their goal is to monetize it. And yeah, that's why that is the subject of this video. What thoughts did you have about this article?
Well, first of all, shout out to Sydney, because you know what? I appreciate, if people got involved with L. Ron Hubbard and something horrific went down, like that's fine, come honest, be transparent about it. And I really appreciate Sydney's honesty and just saying like, look, this is what was going on. It was all normalized. It wasn't anyone's ideas, and people were taken, their naivete was exploited ad nauseum. And that's context. Like, so, if you're afraid to come out and say what the hell was going on in those hotels, don't be afraid, because you know what? It's like the more you're transparent now and the more you can own up to what was going on, the more we can change this. And it's like, our intention is not here to sit here and point fingers. The fingers pointed at L. Ron Hubbard. He's the idiot that put all of this together. So I just want to make that clear for people. And, we are trying to arbitrate into this insanity, right? Trying to let people understand in the audience what's going on in the hotels and how this insanity is bred, because, all of these ideas have contaminated everyone in the hotel. So all of these depravities are going on. They don't even think twice about it. And it's like, think about it, like everyone there has given up their critical thinking, because L. Ron Hubbard told them it would be in their best interest to not have critical thoughts while they're inside the hotel. So yet again, we go back to attorney Monique Yingling that thought this was a very angelic man, like an unindicted runaway felon that decided that all of his subjects could not have critical thoughts against him is an angelical religious man. It's like, at what point is this woman going to start, really getting her law license reviewed and start figuring out what the hell's going on in these hotels? Because commoditizing the pain of children and finding out who's who and all of this and practicing law without a license is simply outrageous. It just cannot happen like this.
Yeah. One of the things I'm really hoping more people will come forward to discuss on all of our channels is people who, no matter where they were in the Scientology hierarchy, can discuss what knowledge, even if it's just superficial knowledge, what knowledge they had received or even gleaned of various ways that they knew, they heard children in Scientology were being abused and it was being covered up. I mean, I've heard the craziest stories from people who, and I'm hesitant to tell their stories for them because it'll be more powerful if they come on and tell their stories themselves. In Scientology, I don't want to use the Scientology words.
Well, no, but I mean,
who have heard of the Office of Special Affairs specifically covering up the most horrific abuses abuses of children in a way that very specifically allowed the abuse continue to occur. I'll tell the story right now without, there was a guy, was it Martin Wiseman? Was it Martin Wiseman? He was not qualified for INCOM. Guys, Scientology, INCOM is the name of the organization that handles all of Scientology's computerization. INCOMM, International Network of Computerized Organized Management. He wasn't qualified for INCOM because every time he tried to do his clearances, it would come up that he was a pedophile. And so even though he couldn't qualify to become INCOM staff, they would send him out on projects by himself all over the world to do computerization at the orgs, knowing he was a pedophile. Knowing he was a pedophile, they would allow him to be put up in the homes of public Scientologists who had kids, and he would molest their kids. And then when someone who was on auditor training was assigned to audit him, he started confessing these things. He was very, I guess you could say, apologetic. He was like, there's something wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I can't help it. I have this compulsion. I can't stop. And the person who was auditing him reported it to the Office of Special Affairs International. and said, one, I'm not going to keep auditing this guy because it's disgusting and I can't handle it. Two, he has to be reported to Interpol. He has videos on his phone of children doing illegal things, and he crosses country lines with this material on him, and he's molesting Scientology children. And they continued to send him out on project by himself, knowing this. It does not get much worse than that. And I just, it's almost an appeal. I want as many people as possible to come forward with stories like that they know of. And I'll name names. I'll name names as long as people have names to give me. I don't care. Because this is what I mean when Scientology can't do anything about what we're doing. Scientology can't sue any of us into silence. And I would love for Scientology to sue us for any of this shit that we're saying. That would be my dream, because then we get to depose them. You know what I'm saying? So that's why we're having these conversations. We're talking about the monetization of abuse, and allowing the abuse to continue. Is there anyone in Scientology who actually thinks that Scientology can fix people like this? I don't believe it. Do you think there's anyone in there that actually believes that shit, or is it just an excuse?
I mean, again, the euphemisms of L. Ron Hubbard are strong and are by design created to sanitize everything that's going on internal, right? Like that's how you have all these people became full-blown entitled degenerates that were drunk in their own power, and they weren't able, because the humanity was ripped away from them, right? Like they're talking about, the child molester as somebody that just had an out-to-D, that gets a withhold pull, that goes and floats a needle. It's like, how is this supposed to raise a red flag? And then if you're not looking at it like that, then you're being critical of L. Ron Hubbard. You're there to cross L. Ron Hubbard on what a floating needle means, because, so again, it's like, how can these people have been put in that position? And how did no one outside of Scientology, because, everybody wants to blame everything on Scientology and David Miscavige and this and that. But you know what? Who was responsible for telling them that what they were thinking of doing, that L. Ron Hubbard wrote, was all legit without a single shred of a critical thought about what was in those bulletins that are driving the insane behavior, that are driving the felonious criminal conspiracy, because they were all acting in unison. It's like you brought up, it's this people that do it, it's that people that do it, but it's like, OSA finds out, Aaron, and they're out there liaising with the lawyers, whoever works for Scientology. It's like, what kind of law degree do you have? Because you know what? It's like, you can do a lot of things as a lawyer. And yes, everyone in America deserves a lawyer, but you can't co-conspire with your client to cover up criminal activity. And as a lawyer, you cannot lie to the court. You cannot make false statements. You cannot know that your client is doing criminal things and pretend that you don't know. So OSAs, and they're calling their lawyers that they have on retainer, letting them know, oh, this child person just said this in a session. What should we do? We saw it. The folder was taken to OSA. OSA was giving it to the attorneys. The attorneys were pouring through the sessions, pouring through the videos, pouring through the evidence. What is their excuse? Like, the people inside Scientology have the excuse that L. Ron Hubbard told them so. And you know what? That's a good excuse, I guess, for them. But, the attorneys outside don't have that. They went to law school. They have a law degree. They're supposed to be arbitering the law, but none of them have bothered to do that in their case. They've been just cashing checks and retainers over the pain of all these people that are just being, scammed. And that's the problem with a scam, right? Like, no one wins when they're getting scammed. No one's getting anything out of it.
Yeah. Serge, this one's for you here. It says, Serge, what is co-auditing? You are fearless and eloquent, and I do enjoy every time I can view your videos. Thank you. Aaron, always awesome. How do you describe co-auditing?
Well, you know what? Co-auditing is basically these, grooming salons where all these audits that we're talking about, all these like fake depositions are going on, and they're all being done right in front of you. Like, that child over there is being asked if he's been masturbating. The two chairs over there, you got, two people discussing, from where could you communicate what would you tell a prostitute? That thing that we were talking about the other day, Aaron. And you're watching everyone role play all of this around you. They're watching the e-meter. They're pretending that's a lot going on, and you have to get this right, and you have to get that right, and you better not stumble a command. And again, L. Ron Hubbard created all these fake distractions of things that you should be checking and looking into to distract from the fact that full abominations are happening right in front of everyone's eyes, and is not raising any questions because everyone is so groomed to get off on the words. Oh, I just had a session. Oh, I just, had a floating needle. And they're getting off by saying those words because that, it's like very Pavlovian. It's like good boy, bad boy. When you say had a great session, la, 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 then your brain is like, oh, I'm good. But then you know what? You're just sneezed. Oh, you just became PTS. Oh, now you bad boy, out ethics. Who's telling you Scientology is no good? Because every single time you get sick, apparently, someone has told you that Scientology doesn't work. That's the only reason L. Ron Hubbard believed that any human being could get sick. Is like counter intention to you doing Scientology because that's in your best interest. So again, all these policies are aligned and put there so people could just be self-flagellating and abusing themselves for the benefit and the enjoyment of the case supervisors that are looking at their abuse and thinking everything is great. And, the captains of the hotel that are there at graduation, yapping away and saying how great they're doing and how all these things that they're doing are helpful. But they're doing it with a straight face while they get told when a child was raped in one of the hotels. Right. But it's like, oh, no, but this is a great environment. You guys, flag is the perfection. Superpower is the way to go. Everything is wonderful. And we have to understand that a lot of these public, you guys, all these millionaires that are pouring in money, so many things that happen in the Sea Org, they don't have the clearings to know. Right. So they can only know this. They can only know that. That's why Scientology is petrified that there are people speaking out or that they read a media, because the minute you have some critical thinking, that opens your brain to be like, okay, maybe not, right? You're so sure that all these things that you did are so right and so good and so legal. But, once you read one critical thing, maybe that puts you in that point of like, okay, but maybe not, because at the same time, you're abusing yourself the whole time and no one's coming to rescue you out of that violent relationship that you're in, right? We see this in domestic violence, like people trauma bond with their abuser, and everyone in Scientology is trauma bonded with themselves. And it's like, that's the tragedy here. Like, how did all these people get so abused? Nobody wanted to do that.
Right. I want to bring attention back to something that to me speaks to the bullshit Scientology keeps saying to the press about not having any policy preventing Scientologists from reporting each other to the police. There are many self-serving reasons why Scientology has the policy forbidding people to report another Scientologist to the police. But in this quote here, we have what I think is one of the most important reasons. They monetize it. If they sent you to prison, they couldn't monetize the abuse by selling you your salvation through auditing. The Los Angeles fundraisers routinely asked ethics officers, directors of processing, and church registrars to divulge parishioners' personal secrets. We would find out what trouble they had been in, what their buttons are, how much money they had. We had the skinny on everyone. And then where was the part where oh my God, yeah, she added, it was not confidential by any means. I could tell you who the child molesters are. Well, guess what? That's because none of them were reported to the police. They were in the Hubbard Guidance Center paying $2,500 for a 12-hour block of auditing. That's why would Scientology report you to the police when they can monetize your abuse and audit the evil out of you? I mean, just for the dollar. It really makes me question, is there any auditor who audited a freaking child molester who actually thought they were fixing that person? It's very hard for me to actually believe that there was. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, unfortunately, I know firsthand, I'm firsthand that auditor, Aaron, because when I was sent to the RPF as a child, my twin was a self-admitted pedophile that Marty Rathbun had sent there. So going back again to this Marty Rathbun man, he sent a self-admitted child pedophile to the RPF to get rehabilitated, because going back to your point, it's like then they can use them, right? As long as they rehabilitate them. And I could tell you when I was auditing him, I was being abused. I was being forced to role play for a self-admitted pedophile, this position that I was an auditor, a therapist, a person that was there to clean his withholds and to run this L. Ron Hubbard technology. Like none of it makes sense and none of it is valid, and all of it is absolutely ridiculous. And it's just all L. Ron Hubbard's fantasy. It's just literally role playing L. Ron Hubbard's fantasies. And
Well, Serge, I mean, since we're talking about naming ethics officers and stuff like that, this was Marcus Gunter, right?
yeah, Marcus Ginter.
Marcus Ginter.
Yeah.
Was he German or Austrian? Do you know?
German.
And I remember Marcus was a student MAA ethics officer at the Coachman building when I was training there. I can't remember if I only saw him when I came back in 98 or if he was there during the 96 training evolution. Do you remember?
In 96, he had already been sent to the RPF. So you got him second time around.
Oh. So you had Marcus Ginter and Jens Emil Roest was the other ethics officer that worked in there with him. Those were the two I knew at that time. If there was any others, I didn't know who they were. So literally, here's the crazy thing, guys. I mean, everything we're talking about is crazy. The person Serge is talking about was an ethics officer at the most prestigious Sea Org base in the world. And the guy was an admitted pedophile. I mean, it's like Scientologists most of them don't actually like public Scientologists. You're people who are just paying. I don't really want to let anyone off the hook for what they know or don't know. But we can say they don't know the shit that goes on behind the scenes with Sea Org members. They don't know that. They don't know that when they show up to the ethics officer and they're being handled, that this guy is someone who's admitted to being a pedophile. But certain Sea Org executives know that kind of stuff. For example, you just said Marty Rathbun is the one who sent Marcus to the RPF. Well, Marty Rathbun wasn't protecting society or even Scientology kids from that pedophile. In fact, he sent him to the RPF where he twinned up with you, a child, and spent countless hours basically abusing you in auditing sessions. I mean, it's so sick. Most Scientologists don't even know that it gets quite that sick. Would you agree with that?
Well, going back to the confront of evil, Aaron, I think that it's the sword has two sharp edges. On the one hand, you don't know, but on the one hand, you saw it all and you were there. And you know that what we're talking about is standard. It's covered in policy. Nothing in that hotel could be done if it wasn't in a role-playing script of L. Ron Hubbard and one of his hundreds of bulletins or policies, right? So everything was always justified with, we're applying this policy, we're applying this technology, we're applying the writings of an unindicted felon. And it's like, how did that experiment bode for everybody?
Yeah. Okay, so here's a question. Gigi, would they explain to a kid what masturbation is if they said they didn't know during auditing? Would that be grooming? Would child have been embarrassed to admit they didn't know? It's so reprehensible. The answer is yes. They would literally explain they would open up a dictionary. They would say, child goes, what does that mean? Oh, let's look up the definition of that word. Let's open the dictionary. They would literally open up the dictionary, probably Webster's Young Readers.
Well, then do a demonstration. Oh, we have a demo kit here. Let me demonstrate how that looks, how that could be, and give you mass. I mean, that's what they called it.
Look over read definition 1 out loud for me. Then the kid would read the definition out loud. What does that definition mean to you in your own words? The kid would now have to tell the auditor, by the way, male, female, doesn't matter. The kid would now have to tell the auditor in his own words what that definition means. The auditor would then say, use that word in a sentence for me. And the kid would probably have to use the word in 5, 10 sentences. And if there's more than one definition, they go, okay, read the next definition out loud for me. It is thorough. It's humiliating. And by the way, that word that you're using in your example, the word, that's the mildest word. That's the mildest word. There's certain auditing actions. Serge and I, we have a plan. We're going to do a dedicated pre-demonetized video so that YouTube doesn't strike us. We strike ourselves so that YouTube knows we're playing by the rules. And we are actually going to use real examples of what's called the grade 0A and 0B lists. The most vulgar, intentionally vulgar and disgusting words and subjects that are used in this particular auditing action, that a child of any age, 10, 11 and above, there's no restrictions on doing this particular auditing action. And it's a low level auditing action. So any child going up the bridge is going to do this particular auditing action pretty early on. And you're going to see just how disgusting it is. And by the way, it's a tailor-made list of items. So L. Ron Hubbard didn't say, these are the items. He literally says, essentially, come up with the most disgusting, vile, degrading things that you can think of. And there are certain staff members and SEERG members who get really excited when someone's about to get up to this auditing action because they want to put some good ones on that list. I can't even say the words in this video, but we're going to do it so people really get the idea. Yeah, we should do that sooner than later. Because we're going to be talking about this quite often. At least that's my plan. Okay, let's see what this one says. Raven Azure of law enforcement. If law enforcement is watching this, could they be convinced enough to push on investigating the Church of Scientology after hearing these stories? Could these live shows be used as evidence in court? I mean, anything could be used as evidence in court, I mean, it's one of the, in my view, one of the benefits of putting out a lot of content about this is that it won't be hard to find. And it's not like we will have said it once in one video and you have to find the video. I want there to be so much content describing about how the practice of auditing, either receiving auditing or giving auditing, is harmful to children, that people don't have to go searching for it. It's one of the top things you find when you search Scientology on YouTube or the internet.
But the other thing that I would add to that, Reventure, is law enforcement has been fully notified and briefed. There's been plenty of us minors that have now gone to the Clearwater Police and had all our separate interviews, long, lengthy interviews. The Clearwater Police took a lot of time asking us a lot of questions. They wanted to know a hell of a lot of things, and all of it resulted in nothing. So the problem with these law enforcement agencies is they're not incentivized to be on the right side of the law. They've been lazy. They've been co-opted into, fraternizing with the enemy. They are sleeping with the enemy. I mean, we're talking the Fort Harrison is right behind the Clearwater Police Station, you guys. This hotel is not in some remote location, Jeffrey Epstein style. The Clearwater Police is right behind them. And you know what? There's been reports, there's been people, there's been things that they could have seen themselves, but they're not bringing themselves up to be, to actually do what they need to do. They're pretending that they're scared and that they can't find anything. And they come up with all these pathetic excuses about how them with the guns can't do anything for a child inside that hotel. I mean, just imagine everything that Aaron and I are discussing right now is being done in those hotels. And under this idea that the angelical man that L. Ron Hubbard was cannot be criticized by anyone, an unindicted runaway felon cannot be criticized by anybody. And these things can just be done to another child, and the parents can pay for their children to be put into this. I mean, going back to the point, it's like, yeah, Americans have free land. And if you're 21 and up and L. Ron Hubbard is the way you want to get your freak on, go sign up with them. They're going to give you a ton of paperwork to sign so that you are admitting that you like it that rough. I mean, those are the contracts Monique Yingling and her attorneys put together. No suing, no this, no that, no liability at all. Like, you're signing away all your rights, and you're being told by L. Ron Hubbard that it's going to get rough because, again, it's like, yeah, you're groomed, but, if you're an adult and you're getting involved in this, that is at your own peril. And we have to make that point because the kids that are being brought into this didn't do it in their own way to consent. And that is a place where the police, the Clearwater police, cannot play dumb with us and be like, yeah, we can't do anything because you know what, they can do whatever. It's like, it's if parents that traffic their kids for sex trafficking motels want to tell the police that they're just practicing a religious belief in that motel, you know what? Maybe they should call up Monique Yingling and ask her, why can you get us also approved like L. Ron Hubbard? Can we be religious figures? Can anyone just get a religious figure thing? And then can they just write anything on a piece of paper? And is that enough to circumvent the law? Because I mean, I think that's what is being shown to all of us kids that were trafficked, that it's just that easy to circumvent the law. As long as you have an attorney that's retained and they're going to write and lie about you, everything is fine. And the police can't help you. No one in law enforcement can help you. You're just like completely out of luck. It sucks to be you. It's like you pulled it in. Like we're being told today that we pulled this into ourselves. Like there's nothing can be done. So that's kind of where we are with law enforcement. They're just on the wrong side of the law.
Yeah. Guys, if you are one of, let me show Laura's comment here. If you're one of the 1,000 people watching right now, please hit the like button for us. It actually helps with notifications, which, as you can see from Laura's comment, YouTube is notorious for not sending out notifications to people who've asked for them. We do believe that hitting that like button helps with notifications. So, Serge, here's one, and then perhaps we'll wrap it up here. Griffin family, does Scientology use a dictionary different than public school? What's your take on this?
I mean, they have all manner of regular dictionaries, Webster's this, Webster that. I mean, we literally had to pour through all of them to find the right definition. It was always about finding the exact right definition. So they have normal WOG dictionaries, but the only thing you're ever clearing is words that L. Ron Hubbard wrote, and you're only understanding what he's pitching to you. And that is how they stunted our growth and our intelligence and our intellect, because we were literally on a diet of L. Ron Hubbard 367, 365, 24/7, every day, every night, all the time. So they use the regular dictionary, but it almost doesn't matter because they don't let you read anything else other than L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, it's true. Diana B says Scientology lawyers' licenses needs to be investigating. Absolutely. Melissa says, why do you keep saying practicing law without a license? Explain that, Serge.
Because, you know, as having seen what these audits really become, and then having to then study what a deposition is and how that's conducted. I mean, depositions and audits are conducted in the same set of circumstances. In a room, table, both people sitting across each other. One party is interrogating the other. There's a set of things that they're needing to find out. There's a set of things that they're being told to check. Now, with the law, it offers parameters. You can go this far based on what we have of evidence of here. You can ask these questions or not. And you afford the person that's being interrogated an advocate so that they don't incriminate themselves. So in Scientology, they're asking you the incriminating questions, and they're not allowing for anyone to be there. And if you refuse to answer the incriminating questions, they're punishing you and they're putting this on you. So again, we finished a 2-week hotel. Why would we be asking about felonies if we're supposed to be doing a religious experience? Like, when did felonies and religious experience become together? So it's kind of making like a comparison. We've also said extreme role plays because we were on this machine that we couldn't move, right? So in like a deposition, you can move, you can say, oh, I want to take a drink of water. In these sessions, you cannot, they'll be like, oh, I want to go to the bathroom. In a minute, I'll tell you when we can, but I'll repeat the question. Have you withheld something that you don't want anyone to know about you? And it's like, you're just up against this robot that's just firing at you question after question, and you're in my control and I'm dominating you. So it's not even a deposition. It's like a deposition mixed with S&M, it's sadomasochism, all extreme, all normalized, all being video recorded. So all of this is done with a lot of knowing what the hell's going on. So as much as everyone wants to pretend nobody knew what the hell was going on, everything was written in the policies of L. Ron Hubbard, everything we discuss here. So we're trying to make the case of what the hell's going on, because also like Clearwater police, they interrogate people that are suspected of crimes, right? But how come in the street across, a police can only ask certain things? There's certain things that can say, cannot say. The person can call up a lawyer. No, don't interrogate my client anymore. He wants to leave now. Going back to the advocacy part. But right behind in the Fort Harrison, you'll be locked there for 9 hours and they won't let you out until they want to let you out. So they're doing the same thing, but they're applying completely different rules. It's kind of what I would explain it. Obviously, yeah, Scientology is not a deposition, but they're doing sort of in the same nature of questioning, lines of questioning, at least.
Exactly. Everybody, go over, please subscribe to Serge Del Mar on YouTube at Serge Del Mar. So much more to come. And yeah, shall we wrap it up there for now?
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
All right, guys, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you to everyone who watches until the very end. And we'll talk to you soon.
Ciao.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe